Welcome back to the quiet storm of showbiz, the corner of the internet where we read between the glitter and listen to the pauses that say more than press releases ever could. You are tuned in to Whispers of Turkish Stars, the place where speculation is treated with care and detail, where we examine not just what is said but the music of what isn't. If you've been waiting for a channel that treats celebrity stories like living, breathing narratives, you found your home. Today, we are not chasing noise, we are following a thread of soft, persistent clues that has taken hold of the public imagination. Our focus is on Elçin Sangu and Barış Arduç, two icons whose screen alchemy spilled beyond scripts long ago, whose names together feel like a refrain everyone remembers by heart. We're stepping into a tale of hushed proposals and possible new life, a tale so delicate it feels like it's made of candlelight and held breaths. Before we begin, take a second to subscribe and tap the bell, so you catch every beat as it lands. And if you want to support deep dives, members-only theories, and the kind of analysis that takes time and love, hit the join button and stand with us. Whispers of Turkish Stars runs on your faith. Now settle in. This story may be written in whispers, but it echoes like a promise. Reading the signs begins not with words, but with fabric. In an industry where every cuff and hem is a statement, fans have noticed that Elçin Sangu, long celebrated for daring silhouettes and meticulously tailored looks, has moved, almost imperceptibly, into a gentler aesthetic. Oversized knits dust her frame like clouds. Coats drape rather than sculpt. Dresses float instead of cling. To observers outside the language of fame, this might be a seasonal pivot. But insiders know. When a star famous for sleek lines embraces comfort and softness, it often signals a private chapter turning. Why would a woman with a razor-sharp eye for fit and shape suddenly veil the form she has always used as a canvas? Those who adore her see a message guarded in texture and layers, a lovely secret shielded by wool and cashmere, an intimacy protected with style. But the wardrobe is only the doorway. The atmosphere around her has changed too. The constant hum of posts, the spur-of-the-moment stories, the playful behind-the-scenes peeks, these have slowed, almost as if someone turned the volume down on a crowded room. People working near her describe a quieter Elçin, focused, intentional, conserving herself the way a painter protects a new work still drying. Protecting her energy is a phrase that keeps surfacing, and in this context, it carries the weight of both heart and biology. It's not a disappearance, it's a retreat. Not an ending, but a preparation. In place of bubbly updates, there is a deliberate stillness, a silence that feels rich rather than empty, like a pause at the top of a breath before you finally speak. Running parallel to this softer orbit is the story of a question asked in the simplest way understood by two people. The rumor goes that Barış Arduç, whose presence can command an arena without raising his voice, chose to propose without spectacle. No drones. No flash mobs. No sponsored fireworks exploding in sync with a trending song. Just a private minute carved out of a crowded life, a ring presented not for likes but for a legacy. The version making the rounds paints a picture of restrained beauty, a quiet setting, words that need no amplification, a promise made in a tone only the two of them know well. Those who say they were close enough to hear it without seeing it talk about the way Elçin's face lit up from within, the kind of glow that can't be staged. And then comes the inevitable question. Could two people this famous keep such a milestone hidden from a city that never stops watching? Or is the very absence of leaks the strongest sign of how deeply their inner circle believes in them? We want to bring you into the conversation, because this community has always been part of how stories unfold here. Do you think chemistry like theirs stays locked behind the screen, or do you believe it eventually finds a way into everyday life? Into dinners, late-night talks, and decisions that change everything? If whispers of an engagement and a pregnancy are true, do they owe anyone a timeline, or is silence the sanctuary they have every right to preserve? Paint the wedding you imagine, a shimmering palace on the Bosphorus where the water holds its breath, or a secret garden where the vows are heard by trees and wind and a handful of souls. Drop your thoughts below, and if you're with us in this deep read of signals and spaces, like this video so the algorithm knows Whispers of Turkish Stars is where thoughtful celebrity storytelling lives. Another layer of the tale comes from the most ordinary and telling of scenes, family tables. We are hearing about low-key dinners, careful logistics, voices kept soft not from secrecy but from tenderness. No glittering chaos, no circus of influencers. There are mentions of parents and siblings passing plates, of timelines discussed between spoonfuls of dessert, of calendars open not for press but for life. If true, these meetings imply something beyond romance, a shared project, a home being drafted in conversations instead of headlines. There are murmurs that members of Elçin's family have been in Istanbul more often, not for splashy events but for evenings that end with shared tea and unhurried goodbyes. That is where weddings are truly planned, over the quiet negotiations of who stands where, who speaks first, and how to make room for two histories at one table. Then there's the trip everyone keeps mentioning. Not a glossy getaway designed for cameras, but a brief disappearance, a breath taken far from schedules and noise. Friends describe it as a retreat to talk about real life, to make choices without input from strangers. When they returned, people noticed a difference that cannot be faked. There was a steadiness in Elçin's gaze, a softness that suggested certainty rather than doubt. And around her, there was Barış moving with a subtle change, the way he positioned himself between her and a crowd, how his hand hovered just close enough to guide, how he made space for her in rooms that suddenly seemed smaller. Those who study body language call this a protective shift. Those who believe in love call it instinct. Whether or not a nursery has been discussed, the choreography of care is hard to miss. The ripples of private joy always find their way to public schedules. People who manage sets and scripts quietly admit that certain productions seem tailored with unusual kindness around Elçin's hours. Scenes are shuffled, long days trimmed into gentler arcs, intense sequences redirected to later dates. In a field where time is an unforgiving machine, such flexing is rare, and it usually signals one thing: something precious needs safeguarding. Meanwhile, listeners with good ears say they've heard a phrase from Barış more than once: "Everything is going very well in my life." Coming from a man famously protective of his boundaries, that simple sentence lands like a confession. It feels like the smile someone wears when the last puzzle piece finally slides into place. The audience is split in a way that says more about hope than conflict. On one side are the believers, already sketching wedding flowers and playlists, treating the evidence like a treasure map whose X is obvious if you know how to look. They catalog the looser silhouettes, the gentle schedule changes, the trip with no captions, and they see a tapestry forming. On the other side are the protectors, who love them just as fiercely but advocate for patience, for allowing announcements to be born from the couple's own timing. They worry that expectations can bend reality into something brittle. And still, even those who plead for restraint cannot deny the magnetism of a story that has been softly building for years. In a world in love with velocity, the promise of something slow and honest is irresistible. If the whispers about the ceremony are accurate, it will be the opposite of a spectacle. Think of places that hold memories in their stones. A historic villa with sunlight that remembers older summers, or a private shoreline where the sea keeps secrets. The descriptions that surface are consistent, intimate, meaningful, elegant. It matches what we've always sensed about them. Elçin's grace resists anything gaudy. Barış's steadiness rejects noise for the sake of attention. A wedding designed for a headline would feel like a costume on them, a wedding designed for their hearts feels inevitable. Imagine a guest list that can be spoken in one breath, just the people who have known their silences as well as their laughter. And if every whispered piece falls into place, if there is a ring worn only at home for now, if a life is quietly growing, then their quiet is not a game, it is protection. It is the decision to live something sacred without commentary, to hold joy long enough for it to deepen before it is shared. When the first official word arrives, it might be as restrained as they are, a single photograph with shadows like poetry, a caption that uses 5 words to say what novels try to capture. It would not be just another post, it would be a cultural exhale. The fairy tale would not arrive with trumpets but with a heartbeat. Until then, listen to what silence can say. In fame, people deny what isn't true and monetize what is. Refusing both the denial and the parade can itself be a statement. It can mean, we're busy living. It can mean, we will invite you in when the door is ready to open. And when that notification finally lands and the timeline erupts, be sure we will be right here, not to shout over it, but to hold the moment with the care it deserves. This is Whispers of Turkish Stars, and this story is still being written. If you want us to trace the breadcrumbs of that baby moon or revisit the first sparks of their on-screen legend, say so in the comments. Like this video to help this community stay visible, subscribe to stay close, and tap join if you want to step behind the curtain with us. Until the quiet breaks, keep your ears to the ground and your eyes on the spaces between the flashes. We'll be watching with you, gently, patiently, hopefully, as the next chapter finds its voice.